Okay, good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone here to our CITBA webinar today, titled The Future of Halal Travel, Opportunities and Challenges in the Asia-Pacific Region, which will be presented by Mr. Fazal Bahardin. My name is Nur Hafiz. I am the Marketing Lecturer at JCU Singapore Business School, and I will be moderating this session. So before we begin, I would like to remind our audience of a few housekeeping items. Firstly, this webinar will be recorded for publicity purposes. All attendees may ask questions at any point of the webinar through the Q&A function. The Q&A session will take place at the end of the presentation itself. Finally, at the end of the webinar, we will conduct a satisfaction poll and survey, and we hope you could take a moment or two to provide your feedback. Lastly, if you encounter any technical issues during the webinar, please use the chat button to communicate with our event organizers. So without further ado, it's my privilege to welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Fazal Bahardin, CEO of CrescentRating and Halal Trip. Now, after an 18-year corporate career, Mr. Fazal decided to venture into entrepreneurship. Having experienced difficulty of finding basic faith-based needs as a frequent Muslim traveler, in 2008, he founded CrescentRating in Singapore in a quest to make travel easier for Muslims. Thus, over the next 14 years, CrescentRating has grown to key markets across Middle East, South Asia, Western Europe, North Africa, and rest of Asia. Today, it's the world's leading authority on halal travel. In his corporate career, Mr. Fazal was also the telecom executive, and he held senior positions in Paris, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore. He also served as a board member of Alcatel Fujitsu JV for 3G technology. He was listed among the 20 Life Power List 2016 of Singapore Straits Times and recognized as one of the top 50 leaders in the Islamic economy by Islamika 500. Fazal completed the executive program from Stanford University and the National University of Singapore's Strategic Leadership Development Program, from Ashbridge Management School and International Management in Telecoms Industry from London Business School. He has an International Master's in Management from the Management School of Lyon, Master's degree in Computer Applications, as well as a Bachelor's degree in Telecommunications from Beijing University of Post and Telecommunications. He also has a diploma in Islamic Banking and Finance from the International Islamic University of Malaysia. He has spoken at many conferences across the globe during the last few years and has been widely quoted in the media as well. Once again, it's an honor for me to welcome Mr. Fazal Bahardin to share today's webinar with us, The Future of Halal Travel, Opportunities and Challenges in the Asia-Pacific Region. Over to you, Fazal.
Thank you, Dr. Hafiz, for the generous introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here today. First of all, thanks to Dr. Hafiz, JCU and CITBA for inviting me here today. It's really a pleasure to share my thoughts on the opportunities and challenges in the Asia Pacific region on halal travel, which is what we have been doing for the last 14, 15 years. Let me see. I should share my screen, I assume now, Hafiz, Dr. Hafiz, yeah. Let me see. Right. Is this okay now? Can you see? Yeah. Dr. Hafiz, is the screen
Yes,
visible?
it's okay.
Okay. This is the question, the most popular question they ask nowadays. They say, is the screen visible? Yeah, so let's get into the topic, straight into the topic. So I'm going to, let me see, okay, here we are. So I'm going to sort of cover these areas today. And, as the Hafiz said, you can ask any questions and we'll hopefully have a very interactive session at the end of my slide presentation. So I'm going to briefly talk about what is halal travel. There are many definitions and many terms being used to sort of get a feel of where we are with these terms. Then talk a little bit about the market growth and drivers, what's driving the market, what are the growth projections, and most importantly also how we track the market. We have been tracking this market for for more than 14 years now. And before I go into the opportunities and challenges, I thought it's good to share what we do internally at CrescentRating and Halal Trip, because that also sort of allows you to understand what are the opportunities and challenges in this market segment, and then we'll talk a little bit about the opportunities and challenges themselves, and then I'll share some resources that if you want some more details that you can look into. So hold on, let me get this started out. Right, okay. Halal travel. So I'm going to start with what is halal travel. So here we are. So I think if you sort of look at either the media or articles on this subject, there are many terms being used. There is there people use the term Islamic travel, Islamic tourism. There have been some destinations have used term Sharia travel or Sharia tourism. Ziyara tourism is another term used, especially in Central Asian countries. And then, of course, we have Muslim travel, Muslim tourism, halal travel, halal tourism, and sometimes it's with the word friendly as well, Muslim friendly travel, halal friendly travel, and things like that. Some of these terms really have to do with some sensitivities in some destinations, what word that they prefer to use. Some of them really do not are specific in like Islamic travel tourism. We are probably looking at although there is still no real definition out there. I think some academics have tried to define those terms. We have also released a glossary long time ago, actually, probably almost 10 years ago, maybe, or 8-9 years ago, that we released a glossary where we have tried to define some of these terms. But without going into much more detail, because if I have to define these words, we need to really go and understand the meaning. So I'm going to sort of give you an idea. These are the terms that's being. So these are the terms that we use within CrescentRating and Halal Trip. We use them interchangeably. Either we use halal travel, which halal travel is probably or halal tourism. Halal travel is probably the most used term within the media. Media generally talks about halal tourism. More and more destinations are prefer to use the term Muslim friendly travel or tourism. So that's sort of the most used term. And this is what we use, as I say, we use interchangeably, either Muslim or halal, and using either the friendly term or travel and tourism. So we believe that this sort of captures the totality of the Muslim market. This term captures the totality of the Muslim market. So in brief, I think there's sort of misunderstanding in some places, what does this market, what does halal tourism mean, or Muslim friendly tourism mean? I think there are misunderstandings, it's something to do with religious travel or anything, something like that. But in reality, we are really looking at, Muslim travelers who want to explore the world like any other travelers, they want to go and see the sights, enjoy the culture, enjoy the sights and sounds of the destination. The only difference is, they also have certain, faith-based needs that they don't want to compromise while they travel and keep their identity. So that's basically it. Other than that, they are like any other travelers. Of course, there are certain places or certain, let's say, certain attractions or certain things that they probably wouldn't do like any other traveler, but pretty much, they are like any other traveler when it comes to tourism. So in terms of developing this, I would say this understanding of what Muslim travelers need, we have been developing a lot of frameworks and tools so that destinations could understand how to develop services for the Muslim travel market, taking into account different aspects, but also importantly the faith-based needs of Muslim travelers. So I don't want to go a long way back in where we have developed certain models. So this is the latest model that we have released. So this sort of takes into account the four. We believe the four important aspects in developing sustainable Muslim-friendly tourism services for Muslim travelers. So we have the responsibility dimension. So because responsible tourism is an important aspect in developing services. And then you have the immersive part. So, more and more travelers want immersive experiences. Then we have the digital aspect of it, in this day and age, all the services need to embrace technology fully to be so that the travelers are able to, seamlessly experience the attractions and other services. And most importantly, the assurance that these services take into account the faith-based needs of the Muslim travelers. So we have developed this model, and the model, as you see, is called RIDA, R-I-D-A, which also is an Arabic word which means content or contentment. So when it comes to halal tourism, Muslim tourism, these are, I would say, the areas that we look at, and this, having these four dimensions in services will make it, especially the assurance part, as faith-based needs of Muslim travelers taken into account, these services will definitely make the services and facilities Muslim friendly. So I'm going to briefly talk a little bit about some of the out of these four areas, what we have done up to now. Of course, the most work that we have done for the last many years in the assurance part, and I'll talk a little bit later on the model that we have developed in terms of what are the key faith-based needs that destinations or businesses should take into account. Recently, we also, earlier this year, we also published a kind of a framework for taking into account responsible tourism from a Muslim perspective. So this is something that we published earlier this year, the responsible tourism triangle. So, I mean, socioeconomic, environment, social, cultural, these are all standard stuff. We did not develop that, that's out there. But what we did was we brought in for each of these elements, environmental sustainability, because these are all actually from a faith point of view, very relevant for Muslim travelers. So we wanted to try and bring in the faith-based, I would say, inspirations, or inspire them from a faith angle to be responsible tourists. So actually that's what this model does. So we have published a longer papers on this one on our website and all that. You can have a look. So I think that's on the responsibility side of it in terms of developing services for the Muslim market. In terms of immersive experiences, I mean, this is a word which is being used a lot nowadays, that everybody wants immersive experiences. And then what we also did this earlier this year in the report that we released, the Global Muslim Travel Index, we identified certain global trends that are shaping the Muslim travel market. Of course, sustainable, eco-friendly tourism, health and wellness tourism, experiential and authentic travel, which is, I would say, a much wider discussion. It needs a wider discussion on what really means. And also we see a lot more interest in traveling for personal development. So we ourselves do some projects around that, actually. So these are some of the areas that that we identified, but I think there's a lot more work to be done in the immersive part. In the digital part, of course, there is the travel industry, of course, has been embracing digital technology for a long time. But the last probably 8 months has changed everything. everything that we did digitally last few years has now, we need to relook at it because of the AI impact. So I think digital, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I really want to spend time a bit on this one because of the assurance part. Because that's, of course, the key differentiator when it comes to Muslim travelers. So sometime in 2009, we identified what we call the faith-based service needs of Muslim travelers. So we categorized them as well into 3 areas: need to have, good to have, and nice to have. When we published initially in 2009, we had in the need to have halal food services and prayer facilities. And in the good to have, it was Ramadan services and water-friendly washrooms, which is here. And then nice to have these 2 non-halal activities and recreational spaces and with privacy. But we did another survey and research in 2019, just before the pandemic. We did a very comprehensive survey with Muslim travelers to see whether what we identified in 2009 is still valid. And there was, of course, validation, but certain things were a lot more important to them, like water-friendly washrooms was identified as a lot more important. So it needed to go into the need to have category. I mean, Islamophobia is an issue nowadays, and that's the need to have. And then good to have, there were 2 new things that we identified through the research and the survey, that they were looking for, local Muslim experiences. And also this was in 2019, and they're looking for social impact activities during their travel. So, so this sort of is the model that we now have published in 2019. So this basically captures, I would say, the faith-based assurances that Muslims are looking for when they travel. Of course, the question is, are all Muslims looking for all of these services or these needs? And that's why we also, sort of identified 3, I would say 3 groups of Muslims. One group which is very strictly practicing, and on the other end we have less practicing Muslims, and then in the middle, vast majority of them are generally practicing Muslims. So I think what's important, so for strictly practicing Muslims, all this on top of this is probably all important. Practicing Muslims, I think, need to have, good to have, probably a lot more important as well. When it comes to less practicing Muslims, even the least practicing Muslim actually will still not compromise. Most of them, 95% of the less practicing Muslims will still not compromise when it comes to food, specifically when it comes to food. They may, I mean, when I say food, we are talking about halal food, of course. They may not be very stringent on how it is assured halal, but they will still look for halal food. So I think this is the most important area in terms of when it comes to assuring Muslim travelers about how Muslim friendly the services are when it comes to the faith business. So that's a very quick overview of sort of what's halal travel and what's in it, and what are Muslims looking for, and the Rida model, so that destinations and services can look into those models to build future services or adapt existing services to the Muslim market. Okay, let me now move on to the next area. Okay, market growth and drivers. So Muslim visitor arrivals, as I mentioned, we have been tracking for a very long time. And these numbers here are from 2013 to 2024. We recorded the highest number of Muslim visitor arrivals in 2019, which was about 160 million globally. 2020, 2021, we all want to forget in the travel industry. 2022, we have estimated the arrivals to be around 110 million, which is really a pretty good recovery, almost 68% recovery compared to 2019. 2023, we project to have about 140 million Muslim visitors, and 2024, we project that the market will fully recover to 2019 levels, which is 160 million arrivals globally. And also we have been projecting, of course, for 2030 for some time. We have redone the projections now. This year we did look at the projections because of the impact of the pandemic in 2020, 2021. And our projections are by 2028, there'll be 230 million arrivals, spending about $225 billion. So that's the overall growth of the market that we see at the moment. In terms of, I think what's interesting also to see, this is 2022 numbers. Global arrivals versus Muslim arrivals. So if you see the global arrivals, you see more than 50% of the arrivals, tourist arrivals, travelers came to Europe actually. Well, a little more, about 500 million out of, I think, close to 950 million visitors last year. I think close to 1 billion visitors in 2022. More than 50% came to Europe, and about 200 million came to Asia. But if you see the Muslim arrivals by region, you see more than, I think, more than 67% or 60% came to Asia. So you see clearly a difference, and there are many reasons for that, why Asia gets many more Muslim travelers, compared to the global arrivals. We'll go into that in the opportunities area. But I think this is something, in the context of our discussions, opportunities in Asia Pac, I think this is something that is pretty relevant, because we definitely see that Asia is one of the top inbound markets for Muslim travelers. These are, so as I said, this is the top inbound market by region, and these are the top 30 outbound Muslim outbound markets. So this is based on 2019 data. Sorry, this is where the 160 million visitors came from in 2019. We'll update this chart based on the 2023 arrivals next year when we release our next report. But you see that about 84% of the Muslim arrivals come from about 20 OIC countries. OIC stands for Organization of Islamic Conference, I think. These are mainly Muslim majority countries. So 20 countries contribute to 84% of the Muslim outbound market. And in order to understand the dynamics of this market, this chart gives you the GDP per capita of some of these markets, some of these countries, the percentage of global population. So if you see on the right-hand side, the GCC countries, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the total percentage of global Muslim population is only 2%. However, their contribution to the global Muslim outbound market is 32%. So that's the 20 OIC outbound markets, and another 15% of the Muslim travelers come from non-OIC markets, and that's the 10 top markets they come from. So this basically gives you an idea of where these 160 million people came from in 2019. I don't think there was a big difference in 2022 as well. However, we'll update this in our 2024 report based on the 2023 arrivals. what I think the biggest driver, I mean, there are many drivers for the growth of this market, but of course, the biggest driver is demographics. First and foremost, the population itself. So the population of Muslims will go from about 2 billion in 2022 to about 2.3 billion in 2030. That's the percentage going from about 25% of the world population to 27% of the world's population by 2030. Also, they are a very young demographic. 70% of the population is under 40 years. Gen Alpha represents almost 21.5%. Gen Z is 27%, millennials 23%. So they're a very young population. Also, they come from some of the fast-growing middle class economies. 32, and you have some data on the bottom left here. 32% of the Muslim population are in G20 countries, 25% in the Arab League. So I think they are, 13% or 14% in ASEAN region. Yeah, so I think this is one of the key drivers, the population growth, the economy is fast-growing middle classes like Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, GCC countries, and also the young demographics of it's a young population. I think that's a bit about the drivers. Yes, okay, one more. So I think, let's compare Muslim market a bit with the two other big, what we call the billion consumer markets, which is Chinese and Indian market. So if there are some, I just wanted to highlight a couple of differences between these markets. So if you see from a travel point of view, if you see the Chinese market, which is probably similar size as the Muslim market in terms of the visitors, Chinese visitors globally. They all come from, majority of them come from one country. Similarly, for the Indian market, they come from, mostly one country. The Muslim market, the market that we just saw, they are from 30 countries. So I think there are pros and cons to this. Probably if they're coming from one market with that kind of volume, the cost of acquisition probably is lower because you just have to focus your marketing activities and things like that to one market. However, Muslim market is 30 markets, so you probably have, the cost of acquisition is higher. However, the risks are lower. So Muslim market is coming from 30 destinations, so you don't have to you won't be impacted if one market has a problem or one destination has a problem compared to the Chinese or Indian market. So that's a bit about the growth, the markets. I'm going to move on to the next section. So how we track the market. So this is one of the main reports. The report that I have been speaking about earlier when I was sharing with you numbers and all that comes mainly from this particular report that we release every year. The Mastercard CrescentRating Global Muslim Travel Index, which is probably the most reference report in the Muslim travel market globally. It's an annual report that we have been releasing since 2015. I'll sort of take you through the evolution of that a little bit later. So what do we do in this report? So we basically benchmark and rank 138, sometimes 140, depending on the number of years, different years that we have released this report. The last report, we ranked 138 destinations, and we rank them using data, more than 50 sets of data, which are categorized into 4 areas. So access, this is the framework that we have developed many years ago. Dr. Hafiz was involved in the development of this this framework. I think we published this framework in 2017. So we look at the ease of access to the destination, how well the destination is communicating both internally and externally when it comes to the Muslim-friendly services and all that. We look at the environment of the destinations in terms of safety, sustainability, and all that. And also we look at the services, the Muslim-friendly services specifically that are offered at the destination. So that's the model that we look at. We use, in fact, to rank countries, and we look at probably about 50 to 55 data sets to rank destinations every year based on this model. Just a quick overview of how the GMTI, the Global Muslim Travel Index, over time. So we started in 2011 at a very small scale. It was called CrescentRating Annual Ranking. We were ranking 10 destinations in 2011, and that slowly moved on to about 60 or 100 destinations in 2015. Similarly named, it was CrescentRating Halal Friendly Travel Ranking. And then in 2015, we partnered with MasterCard and then started repurposed the whole thing that we have been doing before, and it was rebranded as Global Muslim Travel Index. And since 2015, we have been releasing the GMTI, and this year, 2023, was the 8th edition of the Global Muslim Travel Index. It should have been the 9th edition, but since we did not release a report in 2020 because of COVID, it's the 8th edition of the report, where we now rank 138 destinations. We also started mapping the destinations on what we call GMTI performance matrix. I'll talk about it later because that also shows some of the opportunities and challenges and strengths and weaknesses of some of the destinations. So we mapped the destinations based on their GMTI score and the percentage of Muslim visitor arrivals. So on the GMTI score, the midpoint is 50 because we have taken midpoint as 50, and the Muslim visitor arrivals, we have taken the midpoint as 12%. So 12% is the global average of Muslim travelers. So last year I said 110 million versus 900 million. So it's about 12%. So that's the midpoint. So those destinations who are getting more than 12% as Muslim visitors and also having a score of GMTI more than 50 are trailblazers, and then you have the similar to the PCT matrix here. So I'll show you how we have mapped the 138 destinations later during our discussions on opportunities and challenges. We also launched earlier this year what we call the Muslim Travel Intent Tracker. So every month we do a survey with Muslim travelers around the world to understand the intent to travel intent to travel. So intent to travel during the month, intent to travel in the next 1 to 3 months, intent to travel in the next 4 to 6 months, and intent to travel. So we try to understand the intent to travel, and then we have developed a consolidated score as well. So this is available on Halal to be published every month. So we try to understand the intent to travel of Muslim travelers. If you see the intent to travel during the different months here, the holiday months, of course, July, August is higher. Then we are going into December. We are going to publish the December report very soon. So this is another way of understanding and tracking the Muslim travel market that we launched earlier this year. So other than that, we have published more than 25 reports jointly with MasterCard during the last since 2015. Of course, the Global Muslim Travel Index, which we did start from 2015, and we have released 8 reports on that. We have other consumer-focused reports. Earlier this year, we released a report on the Muslim Gen Z travel, their behavior. We have done Muslim women travel. So different types of reports that we have done, either consumer-focused, industry-focused, or sort of economies, country-focused reports. So these are all available on CrescentRating.com if you want to get a lot more details on the market itself. So that's sort of, just want to summarize how we track the market. So as I said, we do annually the GMTI. We have now the Muslim Travel Intent Tracker. We do 3 additional reports annually on the Muslim travel lifestyle and behavior. Or what we plan to do, we are planning to do a quarterly update of data and insights, probably starting, sometime first or second quarter of next year. We're also looking at monitoring some data as a live tracker. So this probably the second half of next year. And also sometime in next year, we also want to look at a city index similar to GMTI, but looking at cities, but looking at a focused area of the cities. So that's a bit of how we track the market, the Muslim travel market. Most of these are available, at least the ones that we have done, GMTI, Muslim Travel Intent Tracker, and the reports are all available on our website. That brings me to what we do at CrescentRating. I have to go fast, I think, now, the time. So we have 2 brands. We have CrescentRating, which is basically what we do at CrescentRating is to work with destinations or businesses to help them to understand the market, to build capacity, and to promote the destination or business to the Muslim travel market. And then Halal Trip, it's a platform for Muslim travelers to find places to go, to plan their trips, where to find halal food, where to find mosque, and things like that. It's a content platform, but also we provide other services as well. So very briefly, CrescentRating services. So we focus on 3 areas. One is education. So we do training and provide market intelligence. We have a data platform. Second area is capacity and capability building. We do quite a bit of stuff, including why the name CrescentRating is because we have a rating system to rate hotels and other travel services and how Muslim friendly they are, and then marketing and promotion. So we develop marketing assets for those destinations. This is the Halal Trip platform. It's a content platform. Due to time, I'm going to skip that. And then this is what other thing that we do. So we have our annual conference, which is called the Halal in Travel Global Summit, where we launch. It's a conference. It's a 2.5-day virtual conference, and day 3 is an in-person conference that we have been doing for now. This will be the 4th edition. Will be next year. We launched the GMTI report there. Also, we launched our Halal in Travel Awards, which we have. The next year will be the 3rd edition. We also have Halal Trip 40, and something interesting that we are launching now, which will be announced at the summit next year, is the inaugural Halal Trip Gastronomy Award. So this is inspired by the Michelin stars. So Halal Trip Gastronomy Awards will be something similar to Michelin stars, but recognizing and celebrating the restaurants in the halal dining space. We are going to start with Singapore this year, and then we'll probably move on to other cities later. We're also going to have an inaugural Business Innovation Challenge, which may be interesting for students at JCU as well. So that's briefly what we do. We'll just skip this as well. Yeah. So opportunities and challenges. So I think this is, I'll run through this quickly so that we can have a discussion. So I think the strengths of Asia Pac is really a few things. One is, 67% of the world's population live in this part of the world, and that's the reason for the other two main reason for the other 2 points here. 60% of the Muslim inbound travel happened to Asia, as I showed earlier, and 70% after the 30 outbound destinations that I showed, 70% of them also came from Asia. So there's both inbound and outbound is heavily focused on Asia Pac. If you look at our GMTI report, we have categorized, which are the most Muslim-friendly regions as well. And if you see that, you will see that this Asia has some of the most Muslim-friendly regions as well. You have the GCC, area. We have the Southeast Asian region, which are very Muslim-friendly, rich Islamic cultural centers, and most importantly, growing middle class. So I think those are some of the trends. Of course, there are challenges because diverse cultures. I think there are still misunderstandings what this halal Muslim market is, a halal travel market. There's a misunderstanding. There's something to do. People are actually traveling for religious treats. So I think there are a lot of misunderstandings still out there in some parts of the region. Still, there is a lot of lack of awareness and training. Infrastructure adoption in some places is still pretty slow to adapt to the Muslim market. I think, in terms of service development, there's some way to go as well. Marketing and promotion, some destinations that we're doing, but some are still not doing enough. So that's a quick identification of strengths and challenges. I'm sure there are plenty more as well. I'm not sure, Hafiz, do you want to stop here and take questions, or should I just run through the next few slides as well? Because I understand that we are 11:40.
I think you can go through the OIC and top OIC countries bit, and then we can take questions after that.
All right. So I think when it comes to, so this is the GMTI 2023 rankings, top 20 destinations. So if you see, I mean, I wanted to share this is relevant for us because we are talking about the Asia Pacific region. If you see the top 20, most of them are in the Asia Pacific region. So you have, of course, Indonesia and Malaysia, and these, Indonesia and Malaysia are the top destinations in terms of in terms of GMTI 2023 ranking. Then you have other destinations within within Asia as well. And then this is the top 20 overall. And if you see, this is the top 20 non-OIC destinations. There also you have countries like Taiwan, Thailand, Hong Kong, Japan, and Singapore, of course, is the top destination in the non-OIC category for many years now. So they are also in Asia. So there are a lot of opportunities in Asia, Asian destinations for the Muslim market. I'll just stop with the last one, maybe quickly. So we also started this year. We also did the top Muslim women-friendly destinations. So this is the first release of those rankings, and we only released the top 10 in each category, but we will start expanding it in the next year's report. Yeah, very quickly, I think this is the 140 destinations mapped into the GMTI performance metrics. You see 23 destinations fall into the Trailblazer category, and they had 67 million Muslim visitor arrivals, which is the more than 50% of the Muslim visitor arrivals actually came to these 23 destinations. There's also something that, if you're interested in identifying opportunities, this is the key touch points analysis on GMTI 2023. So you have destination marketing. This is the top score of 70 and average score of 16. So which means that there's many destinations who are not doing enough because the average is only 16 out of 100. So that's another metrics to look at in terms of identifying opportunities. Last one, I think. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and happy to
thank
take
you,
the
Mr.
questions.
Fazal, for the insightful presentation. Yeah, and I think as you mentioned earlier to our audience members, if they would like to find out more about the data and insights from CrescentRating and Halal Trip, they can certainly go to the website to check out the reports. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just had this one. Yeah, so you have, CrescentRating.com, you have reports, opinion, articles, analysis. We have a glossary. We have a playbook as well. It's called the Crescent Rating Playbook. All the models and frameworks and tools that we develop in all our reports are published in this Crescent Rating Playbook that you can download. It's every time we release a new report, if you identify a new framework, we put it in that and update it. And the Halal Trip has content database and tools, and Dr. Hafiz was actually involved in the first couple of editions of the Crescent Rating Playbook, actually.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
All right. Yeah, we've got to take some of the questions here. We've got a number of interesting ones.
Okay, let me unshare my. Okay,
yep.
Hold on. All right.
Okay, so the first question, Fazal, it's from Dr. Sokre. The question reads, the Muslim community is diverse and expansive. She's curious to know if the RIDA framework, I believe that's the framework she was referring to, is applicable to the majority of Muslims, or which specific region is it more suitable for?
No, I think so. The RIDA framework has 4 dimensions, right? The responsible part, and the immersive part, and the digital part. I think this is especially the immersive part. So responsible immersive part has some elements of the faith that needs to be taken into account. But they are very general indeed. I mean, this is for everybody. Everybody is looking for responsible tourism. Everybody is looking for immersive tourism. Of course, when it comes to Muslim part, you need to take into account certain nuances of the Muslim faith traditions, both in responsible and immersive. I think digital part is pretty much, it's for everybody. So everybody wants, technology to be implemented, contactless payments and all that. I think the question is probably more relevant for the assurance part, right? So assurance part, which is what I mentioned, that the assurance part, I think whether they are coming from any region, I think the region is not the more important part of that dimension. It's more about the religious consciousness part of it, you can be coming from, let's say, a person coming from Indonesia who is strictly practicing will be very similar to somebody coming from UK Muslim strictly practicing. They will be pretty similar behavior, So I think, I think I think it is applicable to any destination. The RIDA model is that you have to be cognizant of the assurance part, that from a more faith consciousness perspective, not really from a destination or region perspective. Of course, you still have to take into account the cultural differences, nuances of the different cultures. This is given.
Okay. The next question is from Irshad Aziz. I think it's just a quick point of clarification. So in the data that you showed earlier, Muslim arrivals by region, it says the most people visited Asia. Does this include the Middle East?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So
I mean, when we say Asia, we use the UN classification of regions. So Asia, Middle East belongs to Asia. Yeah.
Okay. Another interesting question here. The attendee asks, which countries, especially within Asia, are the most popular destinations for halal travel, and where does Singapore stand in that ranking? Maybe you just want to reiterate the data you presented earlier.
Yeah. So, of course, some of the more popular, if you look at we are talking about ASEAN, or we are talking about Asia?
Asia.
So Asia is, of course, huge. I mean, you have, in our categorization, we have to, we have, like markets like Turkey falls under Asia, of course. Turkey is a very popular destination. Malaysia is a popular destination. Singapore, has 20% of arrivals to Singapore are Muslim arrivals actually. So it's a popular destination as well. And then there are, I would say, these are Malaysia, UAE, of course. United Arab Emirates, a popular destination. These are, I would say, the Muslim countries which are popular, but also I think there are more and more up and coming destinations that Muslims are traveling to. For instance, Uzbekistan is becoming a popular destination. Of course, there is a lot of interest among the Southeast Asian Muslims to visit Japan, Korea, Taiwan. Taiwan is becoming a popular destination as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you emphasize that, right? When we think of countries popular for halal travel, we might be thinking of the Middle Eastern countries, but like you mentioned, there's Japan, there's Korea, and so on. Yeah.
Especially Japan, Korea, Taiwan are really, because of the effort that these destinations are putting into targeting the Southeast Asian markets like Indonesia and Malaysia. So there is a lot more interest to these markets.
Okay. We've got two more questions here. Both are from Professor Abhishek. It's rather different. Oh, got three more. So the first one by Professor Abhishek is, thank you for the insightful presentation. Wellness tourism, immersive is a fast-growing segment. Could you please elaborate in relation to the Muslim target market? So wellness tourism.
So first of all, I have to say that we have done a lot of reports, as I showed you, 25 reports, and the next report that which looked at either from a consumer segmentation point of view or a particular segment point of view. So we have done a lot of reports, and the next report that we are releasing in the next few weeks is a comprehensive report on the Muslim halal cruise market. How on the cruise market. So why I'm saying that is that we have not still done a deep dive into the Muslim wellness market. Hopefully, this is something that we probably need to really dig deeper next year. But I think when I say wellness market, we probably need to dig deeper into the whole immersive angle of the Muslim influence or Muslim behavior when it comes to immersive experiences. So having said that, I think when it comes to wellness, I think there are certain, I would say, requirements when it comes to Muslims, in terms of privacy, in terms of, certain usage of, probably, services that we use. So I think there are certain, mostly, when it comes to wellness for Muslims, it's all around. From a Muslim point of view, it's all about privacy, I would say. Privacy. For instance, we have a problem. Muslims have a problem. Just if you go to onsen, the hot, what is it called? The spring in Japan. What do you have? What is it called? The onsen. I forget the English name. What do you call them? The hot springs. Hot springs, right? So hot springs for instance, in Japan, if you want to go to hot spring, a Muslim will struggle because there are certain, requirements for clothing there, where Muslims are uncomfortable, it's a public place and you're supposed to have certain clothing requirements. So these are some of the issues that needs to be looked at in the wellness sector.
Okay, so certainly opportunities there for more research on that area. I'm going to combine two questions later on. Yeah, I think it's just nice that we wrap up with those two questions that are similar. But first one, let's tackle this one from Professor Hera Octadiana. What are specific demographic groups that are increasingly contributing to the growth of halal tourism?
So we identified three groups in our report, I think not this year, last year's GMTI report. So one is the millennials. So millennials are really one of the key groups, Muslim millennials. As I mentioned, Muslims are a younger population. So this is one of the key groups, and we released a report on the Muslim millennial travelers in 2017. Of course, it's rather few years ago, but I think the behavior is still, some of the behavior is still relevant. So I think that's probably one segment to look at. The second segment we identified was the Muslim women travelers, and this is also a growing segment and also very influential in decision making and in trip planning. So we released a report on the Muslim women travelers in 2019, just before the pandemic, with MasterCard. The third group that we identified is the Gen Z travelers, because Gen Z travelers are just getting into the workforce. They are getting independent. They have beginning to have they're able to make their own decisions of where to travel now. So that's another group of travelers that we identified. So these are the three groups that we identified. And by the way, we released a report on Gen Z travelers in I think January this year. So all these three specific demographics that we identified are going to not just drive the market, but they're also going to drive the narrative of the Muslim market, I would say.
Certainly, I think these three groups are one to watch for, in the future when it comes to halal travel. Okay, quickly now, the question from Irshad. Thanks, Fazal, for the insightful presentation. For any country to focus in developing MFT governance, which framework would be the most suitable, ACES or RIDA?
I think they tackle two different things. ACES is at a country level, so this has sort of macro and micro things, but mostly macro level planning and governance and all that. RIDA model we developed is specifically develop services, specifically develop. I'm talking about tourism services. In the ACES. So I think ACES model, when it comes to governance, you should really look at the ACES model. RIDA model is for players to develop their services and facilities. So I think and that's what we have. We know that a lot of destinations are using the ACES model to benchmark and see what are the gaps and strengths and all that. So ACES model is definitely the one to use for governance here.
Okay. So because we are also almost approaching the end of the session, we can only take one more. So again, I'm going to combine Professor Hera and Abhishek's question together. So Fazal, the final question is, what are the challenges specific to marketing and promoting halal tourism destinations that need to be addressed? And in the same vein, how can Singapore tourism sector capitalize on the regional Muslim tourism demand? So what are challenges in marketing halal, and how can the Singapore tourism sector optimize this growing area?
It's important question. I think the biggest challenge is, I would say, misconceptions and misunderstandings. On one side, which is also, I have to say this unfortunately, which is driven by the negative narratives in some media about Muslim Islam and halal. That's the reality. I mean, not so much in Asia, but if you go beyond Asia, there are a lot of negative narratives out there, which is pulling back businesses to sort of walk into this market, because there is some kind of a fear. I think the fear, so both because of the narratives out there, and then that is leading to misunderstanding and misconception. So I think the most important challenge is I think awareness and education. We need to continuously raise the awareness and education. At the end of the day, we are looking at a 2 billion consumer market, 27% of the world's population, and they are here to stay, and every business needs to take into account their requirements if you want to sell anything to them. So I think it is to break these myths and barriers, so that they look at the business rather than what's the fog around those around the Muslim narrative. I think that's one. So coming back to Singapore, I think Singapore has done quite a bit actually. You know, we have ourselves worked with Singapore tourism for many years, and then we worked with them to release the Muslim Visitor Guide in 2021, 2022 also, I think. But I think that once again, I think as you know, in GMTI, Singapore has been number one non-OIC from the start, from the 2015 report. So Singapore is very Muslim friendly, comparable to some other Muslim countries themselves, I would say, in when it comes to like halal food and things like that. However, I think there's still, in some destinations, they're not really aware that Singapore is so Muslim friendly. I think if you come across some people, some travelers in some other countries, they probably don't know how Muslim friendly they are. So I think there's although there's a lot of work being done, I think there's a lot more can be done to highlight how Muslim friendly Singapore is.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's webinar. Thank you to the audience members once again for all the interesting questions. Thank you, Mrs. Fazal, for your valuable insights as well on the future of halal travel, opportunities and challenges in the Asia Pacific region. As we've come to the end, I'm confident that our audience will agree that the discussion has helped us to better understand the halal travel economy and its relevance for the Asia Pacific region as well. Partnerships are vital in tourism, and hopefully from today's session, we may see new ones as well to support halal travel in the future. I would like to express my gratitude to all attendees for joining us today, and especially to Mr. Fazal for sharing his insights. To the attendees, before you leave, a satisfaction poll will appear on the screen, and I kindly request a few seconds of your time to respond to the poll. With that, we conclude the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.